You're listening to The Business Focused Photographer. If you're ready to transform your photography business into a thriving career, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll discuss fun and innovative ways to boost your creativity and income. Sound good? Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm here with a new friend, and I am genuinely excited about this conversation. I've been looking forward to it for a few months now. Cassie Torres is a copywriter for photographers, a former wedding photographer herself. Cassie photographed weddings for a decade and used to get paid really big teacher bucks I'm assuming an English teacher to show teenagers how to express themselves clearly. And now Cassie is just a copywriter. She helps photographers put their vibe into words so they can get booked out with the right clients and build a business that flows seamlessly with their life. So welcome, Cassie.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
excited to be here.
Yeah, I really am excited. Obviously, once upon a time you were a photographer, but you are not at all a working photographer anymore, right?
No, my husband. So, I could give you the whole story.
Sure.
If you like it.
Sure.
So when my husband and I met, we were both teachers and photographers on the side. We met on Tinder. And so we were just doing portraits, and he was doing concerts and things like that. And I was doing portraits and photographing things for my Etsy shop. And I told him I would never, ever do weddings. Like, you will never catch me at a wedding. I will never photograph a wedding. And then shortly after that, he was like, hey, so I booked us a wedding. It was for a family friend who we charged $400 to photograph her wedding. And I was like, do you know what you've done? Like, this is a big deal. And we're going to do it for $400. Okay. But there was this moment during that night. So I dove into how do I do this? I was like, we have to organize ourselves. So I was already trying to figure it out, how to do this. But there was this moment that night where we just looked at each other. We were, changing batteries, and we were just like, we could totally do this. We were just vibing. It was kind of the first time that we had ever shot together too. So it was just really cool. And it just kind of took off from there with a couple other friends hired us to do their weddings. And then that was in 2015, our first wedding. And by 2017, I got so booked out that I had to quit my teaching job. That was one of the scariest things ever. But so he kept teaching while I was doing the wedding photography business full time. And he would join me on the weekends to do all of that. We had a baby, survived COVID, got pregnant again. And before then, actually, before we got pregnant again, we were actually able to retire him from his teaching job too. And so he dove full time into photography, doing headshots and portraits and commercial work. And his food photography is absolutely insane. He's Park City Studios, CT, if you look him up on Instagram.
Oh, I recognize that name because I've been looking for a food photographer to talk to.
Oh, well, he is the perfect one.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so, and then I got pregnant with our second kid. And when I was about 20 weeks pregnant, we found a lump in my breast. And I was then diagnosed with breast cancer. Long story short, I was diagnosed with breast cancer while I was pregnant. And it just became so clear to me at that point too, where I was like, what am I doing with my life? We were at the peak of our wedding photography career. And I loved it, and we were so good at it, and we were charging $10,000 or more, for all of that. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was my couples were amazing and everything, but it was just my life completely changed. And I was even thinking, so we were talking beforehand about how I had food poisoning last night.
Yeah.
I was like, do I cancel this podcast? That was always the stress, right? It's is one of us going to get the stomach bug? Is one of us going to do this? And we're not going to be able to do this wedding that we've booked for a year. And it was just that everything was pointed to this one day for these other couples. And I was like, there is we've been through the ringer, cancer just brings everything out of you and your marriage and your parenting and your mortality and all of that. And I was like, I actually heard a friend say this years ago, that there's so much that happens after the wedding day. And, she was also a former wedding photographer, and she turned into, a family photographer. And she's like, that's what I'm focusing on now because there's just too much. So, but I had always wanted to be in marketing. As I'm editing, I'm always listening to like the marketing podcasts and the business podcasts. And I would listen to photographer podcasts as well, but I've always been so fascinated, and I've always been, I was an English teacher, as you had mentioned, and so my superpower has always been to, I'm not necessarily the best writer. Like I could write your website for you from scratch, but what I wanna do and what my superpower is now is I can look at a piece of writing and I can immediately tell you what's wrong with it and, like,
Yeah.
how to fix it and put this sentence here and put that one there, and I've literally been doing that since, like, 4th grade.
Wow.
People would
Yeah.
come to me for, help editing a piece or, anything like that. So it's like, yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. We sold all of my camera gear, and so now I'm running this business of copywriting where I'm kinda, I've now pivoted to instead of writing for photographers, I'm helping them write for themselves, and then I'm helping my husband run his photography business on the back end.
So
So,
you're two entrepreneurs.
yeah,
No more no more pension, no more benefits built into your pay.
nope.
Because I have to put it out, like, it is like a common understanding across the country that teachers are underpaid. But New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, California. Teachers are actually pretty well compensated in these states. So and I say this because I want to draw attention to the growth that your photography business must have
Mhm.
experienced for you to walk away from that, and then
Yeah.
for your husband to also walk away from that. Um, so wow. But yeah, I did read about when I was stalking you, I did read about your experience with cancer, and I'm so glad that you're on the other side of that. And just I imagine it did make you examine how you were spending your time and what do we have other than time? It's the most finite thing that we have. And I'm sure it's not that you regret the time spent photographing other couples and things like
Never.
that, but it's like it's that's a taxing job. Wedding photography is taxing, and it is not it's like it, it it's just something you I don't know. I'm always in awe of wedding photographers because the stress, just like you said, it's one day. Everything leading up to this one day. What if? There's
Yep.
so many what ifs. And then
Yeah.
like the contingencies are not usually what the bride and the groom are hoping for. So well, it sounds like um it's been a really good transition for you. Today we're gonna focus, and if you haven't noticed my ADHD, it is raging. Um, but today we're gonna do my best to focus on talking about like how AI is showing up and how our readers, our the people who are finding us are picking it out quicker and quicker. It's getting I don't know. I think we're all just getting used to it. I don't know. I don't think it's getting worse, but we're just getting used to it, and it's getting easier to pick out when you see it in copy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. When people are saying like, "Oh, I went full-time photographer," like, with the caveat that my husband was still a
Right.
full-time teacher with the
Right.
benefits and all of
Right.
that, and then so it was even scarier for him to leave that teaching job. And I mean, yes, teachers are paid well, in our area, but we were in 2 different districts. I was in, one of the top 2 schools, and he was teaching in Bridgeport, which is, the bottom of the
Exactly.
school systems in Connecticut, and our pay was drastically different.
No kidding.
Over like 10 years, he wouldn't have even hit where I started with my salary.
It's really
It's insane.
funny.
Yeah.
My husband is a teacher, and he's considering. We're in a small district, and right now there's like some contention surrounding the budget. And if he's a music teacher, so if the budget doesn't pass, that's risky for him, despite his seniority. So he's considering a job at a school that is, known to pay higher than ours does. And he did looked at their contracts and he spread it across the next because he's tier 4. I don't know how it works in
Mhm.
Connecticut, but it's not. Or no, he's not. He's tier 6. It's not the best retirement. Um, so he's got like another 26 years, and even though we would be paying $10,000 less a year for the next 5 years.
Mhm,
After that, the other district kind of plateaus and ours just keeps kind of like slowly climbing. So it is, there's big discrepancies, even in public school systems, even in the same state. Um, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I think this for me the scariest thing because I am that person you described. I went full time
mhm.
before my first was born, so 12 years ago. But I'm married to a teacher. So while we weren't rolling in dough, we had the benefits, which is
Yeah,
the
huge.
scariest thing to give up.
Yeah, especially when I was in active cancer treatment, or about to be.
For
And
real.
yeah, and so now we're trying to figure it out now, and I'm like, "Oh, so I hit my deductible in February? Cool." You know? But it's
Yeah.
all having a good, like, bookkeeper, not bookkeeper, but my tax, girl has been
Yeah.
very helpful, and I'm just like, "Oh, I can, like, deduct medical expenses if they hit, X amount of my
Oh.
income," and so,
Oh.
yeah, having, like, a good tax person who can really look at all of that has been helpful.
Yes.
But yeah,
Always, always.
yeah, going back to, like, the stress of it too, like, I absolutely do not regret photographing a single wedding. It was,
Right.
it's so amazing that I had that, but as soon as I started having kids, I saw, whatever the phrase is, like, the writing on the wall where I was like,
Yeah.
"This isn't sustainable," because my husband and I were doing it together.
Yeah.
And so when I got pregnant with my second kid, I was already starting to pivot to being like, okay, let me send him out to weddings, let him do solo weddings, by himself. And then I got cancer and I was like, oh, we're done. It was just like,
Right. Right.
I had been looking for an excuse to kind of get out for a little bit because it was tough with both of us being gone on the weekends, and the kids were starting to get into school and or my
Yeah.
oldest was starting to get into school, so it was like that was not the life that I wanted to live, where he's at school all week and then I don't see him most weekends, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's something that photographers need to understand too, and it's I brought an assistant with me, my friend, Shannon, who's another great photographer, to a lot of our weddings in that final year and a half when I was pregnant and then going through treatment, and she looked at me at one of our last weddings, she was like, "You have senioritis bad," and I was like, "I do." I was like, That's just the sign," like, photographers will be starting to get all curmudgeonly and it's like you might just be burnt out and you just need to take a month off and go to the beach or whatever, but for me it was like I am here at this incredible couple's most amazing day of their life and I'm counting down the minutes. I'm
Yeah.
still obviously taking the most beautiful photos and working so hard for them in
Sure.
that moment, but I'm like my heart wasn't in it
It became
anymore.
it
Yeah.
became like any other job.
Yeah.
And once it gets there, what's the point? Because it's a lot of
And
work
it would
to
have
run a
been
business.
yeah, and it would have been I could have kept booking weddings if I wanted to, and we needed the money. We still need the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I was like, I can't in good faith do that. And I think that also, as we get into the AI conversation, it's like just running your business with integrity,
Mhm.
And, me knowing that I'm just gonna take these weddings for the money, like, I couldn't do that. So
It yeah, nail on the head right there. You remind me that I wanted to ask you because I was,
mhm.
like I said, stalking your website. Your branding photos are incredible. Who took
Thanks.
them?
That's Nikki Estefan. She's based in Hartford. She
Okay.
has a studio and she is like the premier
Wow.
female founder branding photographer in Connecticut.
They're great.
Yeah,
They're so
thank you.
good. They're so
Yeah.
good. So anybody who wants to see really good
Yeah,
brand photos.
she does an unmatched. She styles you. She does all the little like niches and she's incredible. I could go
Yeah, very
on and
impressive.
on about her. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll have to call her up too.
Yes.
Well, all right, Cassie. I mean, so easy to talk to you. You're an
Yeah.
extremely interesting person.
No,
Your
thank you.
backstory is incredible. Um, I- so talk a little bit about how, as a copywriter, what has been going on in your head as you've watched the evolution of Chat GPT and how people are using it.
Yeah. So I will admit that. So I still use ChatGPT and I'm trying to, switch over to Claude.
Same.
I get so frustrated with it all the time, but I do use it for like brainstorming, or if I'm like, give me another word for this, or how can I simplify a sentence, or I will sometimes have it create like a full email draft. And then that gives me kind of the framework. And then I just write my own stuff like within that framework. So I use ChatGPT. So I'm not like an
Yeah.
AI hater, although I am afraid of, what it is doing to our environment and how
Uh-huh.
the cost of SSD drives have gone up exponentially because of it.
Crazy.
So I do believe that it has some benefits, and it has made certain things be faster. But the thing that I see the issue with ChatGPT and using AI is that it all has the same cadence. And I will never ever believe anybody who's selling a course on like, make AI sound like you. And it's like, no, you
Yeah.
can't. Like,
Yeah.
maybe you
And
can get it to
why?
say, yeah, maybe you can get it to say like, hey girl, instead of like, hello, but that's not, it still has like the same exact
Cadence.
cadence. And there are so
Mhm.
many tells. And it literally like my eyes start glazing over whenever I start reading anything, and then I notice that it's AI, I will swipe away because I'm like, I'm not reading this thing that you didn't write. And it's just whether it's subconscious or it's not, it's vague. It sounds like it gives off the air of it being deep, but it's just not at
It's the
all.
worst, and it's
Yeah.
it's rampant.
Yeah.
I hate when I start to read something and I'm like 2 paragraphs in, I'm like, "Oh, this is just AI," and it's like a story, and then there's like now
Yeah.
there's AI photos attached to it,
Yeah.
and it's just the worst, and speaking of the, environmental impacts, did I just see that Connecticut blocked or set out a bill that's blocking data centers from being built in your state?
I saw something where I did see a post last night about it where I have to
Yeah.
look into it. I was, with my stomach bug slash
Aw.
food
Mother's
poisoning.
Day
That I was
benefit.
like,
Awful.
yeah, the Mother's Day food poisoning. I think there was some bill. I did mean to look into it because I think they were also putting up like protections for children,
Good.
which I love Connecticut for that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to look into that.
Yeah, because that would be great. I'm sick over it, but yes. I also use ChatGPT, also trying to switch to Claude, for the same thing. I need to record 10 solo episodes for the rest of the year. Give me 40 ideas of what I can talk about. And you know what? I gotta say, like the quality is going down of what it's generating. I'm not there.
It's
It's getting sloppy. It is getting
yeah,
sloppy. I don't
it
know if
is.
it's because what's his name is in court right now with Elon Musk. It's like quality control is lacking, but it's getting real bad. Um,
Well,
do
have
you
you heard of this, of like the theory of the AI cannibalization? How the more people spit out AI content, that's what it's training itself on. And so it's like cannibalizing itself. And I'm like, I love that for AI.
this
just
is the
just
grossest.
the slop is eating more slop and spitting out more sloppier slop.
This makes me think of it. I might have to cut this because it's so disgusting, but it immediately reminded me of when this old dog lying next to me, when she was a puppy, would eat her poop and then throw it back up in the middle of the night and then eat it again. And it was like every time it like recycled through her body, it was more and more putrid.
Yeah.
That's exactly, yeah. So it's
This
just
episode is just about puking.
this is it's absolutely grotesque. Yeah, it's about all of the animals jumping around me and their waste. Uh, So I'm sure as photographers find themselves in these different forums and groups, and you're connecting with other photographers, you probably have that too as a copywriter.
What, like,
Uh, like you're in groups talking to other copywriters and
yeah, not so much. It's funny, I'm trying to find my space in all of
yeah,
this. I
yeah.
was, sobbing to my husband about how I don't feel like I quite belong anywhere anymore. Like, I'm not a wedding
Oh,
photographer anymore, and I'm still just very much starting out in this copywriting space, but,
yeah.
trying to find my way. But, yeah, I'm still am pretty active in like all the photography groups, and anytime anybody's like, look at my website, I'm like, gladly, I'm here to do that.
Please.
So yeah.
Well, I ask because I'm curious if there is some sort of fear or narrative in the copywriting industry about AI's impact, or does it not feel threatening
I
to
think it
copywriters?
was in the beginning,
Yeah,
but it's not so much now because we've seen the slop that it creates, and we're like, "Oh, actually, it
yeah.
might replace a mediocre copywriter's job, but not, a good one." Not that I'm declaring that I'm the best in the biz. I'm still relatively new at all of this, but the way that and what you might have seen in my website and with my branding photos that Nikki did for me, the way that I approach this is, and it's so funny, this method I kind of stumbled upon accidentally back in like 2018 when I'm writing my website, and I have this whole this whole training that I do called like Cringe Fest to Clear Choice, where I am roasting my old websites. And you can see you can see like how it changed and how it actually like correlated with different income goals and things that I hit, and when I quit my teaching job and all of that. And some of my early websites were so cringy because it was just me trying to be poetic and me trying to be deep, and not actually writing things that would connect with people who I wanted to hire me. And so one of our first, well, I guess now, if I had already been full time at this point, one of our couples, maybe that was actually for their engagement session back in 2017, 2018. And she sends me this email and she was like, I don't know how this is going to sound in writing, but I was telling my fiance that these photos look like on the outside what we feel on the inside. And I was like, that is what I've been trying to put into words for years, And I was doing it with this poetic gobbledygook. And it was this simple thing that this client said. And I love that she was like, I don't know how this is going to sound in writing, but it was like so perfect. And I took that idea and I ran my brand with that. And that's, we hit 100,000, in the next year or so doing
Oh,
that because I was using my client's words and from that email. And so from that point on, I would just listen to what people were saying about us, whether it was in feedback forums or whatever. I remember even a videographer had messaged us, just like little pre-wedding introduction, like, hey, I'm going to be working on so-and-so's wedding. I checked out your website. Wow, your work really looks like nostalgic and modern at the same time, something like that. And these little things just stuck in my head because, and this is even way back, even before like COVID, where um, photographers and wedding pros and creatives, we get so in our head and we're in these little echo chambers of our own head. And it's like we got to just like lift our head and talk to people sometimes and listen to what the people are saying about your work. And so this is what I hate now about AI, is that photographers are going to AI and are saying like, hey, describe my work, or hey, give me a Instagram caption for, a documentary wedding photographer. And it's all spitting out the same thing versus what I teach and what I want every photographer and every creative to do is to sit down with your past clients, or if you're too scared or you want to get even more honest answers, have like a business bestie and swap, clients, and sit down with each other's clients and interview them and ask them, the things that they loved about your work. And they will give you the most incredible things. I remember I was working with one photographer. We were working on her homepage and she did this, and she interviewed on the phone some of her favorite clients. And she said, they brought up something about how she worked and something that was so ingrained and so innate to her that she, didn't put any importance to it. Oh, it's just what I do. But they noticed it and they were like, that made the day for us. And she's, I'm talking to her after the fact and she was like, I just had no idea how poignant it was to them. It's like there's the whole phrase I love using. I forget who said it originally, but like, you can't read the label on your own jar.
no, you
And
can't.
so we're we're in there, we're so close to our business, we're in it, we're doing the work, and we can't really see how other people are seeing us, but they so often will have the best view of us. And so that's what I love doing, is like, let's interview your clients, let's look at all of your reviews. Let's, yes, of course, take the things that are important to you and the things that you value, and we'll put it all together, all these little puzzle pieces, and find where they intersect. And that is your brand,
Yeah.
as opposed to just asking AI to like spit out stuff, and they're going to call you story driven and, authentic. And AI loves using the word quiet, like the
I hate
things that,
that. What the
like,
hell is
why?
that about? Yeah,
Yeah.
quietly. If I
Yeah,
see
quietly.
quietly AI. Oh, it does. I don't know why I am so lucky to, as a family photographer, to not really have had any experiences that would make me afraid to interview a client. But I'm like, how do I even ask a client? How do I record what they're saying? Or like, is that too weird? Do I just have to be ready to write things down? How do you do this, Cassie?
Yeah, so I actually teach all of this inside one of my courses called Copy Paste Connect, but it's
Okay.
basically you're getting them on Zoom. You could do it over the phone too, and there's like a way to actually record your phone calls on your iPhone. And so I would just record over Zoom, and it is terrifying. Like I've done this for other clients, I've done it for my own clients, I've done it for my husband's clients, and it's just I give you like a template that's just like, "Hey, you're one of my favorite people that I've ever worked with. Can we hop on Zoom? I would love to pick your brain. You can send them like a gift card, to Starbucks or whatever's on brand for you." And most people are happy, and it's also people love talking about themselves. So, so I'm like, get me on a podcast. Yes, I'll do that. I'll talk about myself. Um, and it's also like, the main point too is you're not going to be the one talking. You're the one listening. And so you're going to be curious about it. And so if they say something like, "Oh, it was just really fun to work with him." You don't just end it there, but it's, "Tell me more about that. Like what was fun?" And you just get curious, or why was that important to you that the photo shoot was fun? And then you're listening for these very specific phrases or instances, or they're like, "Oh yeah, the time that you had, my husband lift up my daughter, I love that photo so much." Whatever they're going to say, it's going to be different for every client too. And this is amazing. It's different for every photographer. And before I kind of pivoted into this coaching space, I was writing photographers websites for them, and I would get on the phone with all of their clients, and each photographer's clients are like so unique. And there's, again, you see those intersections of
Yeah.
like, wow, like these belong to this
Patterns.
photographer. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the patterns. And
Yes.
that's, you just have to kind of notice all of the patterns. But yeah, but I mean, I still get so sweaty every time, and I'm like, oh, and I always like dread doing it. But then at the end, I'm like, oh, duh, like always.
And they're not even your clients. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
talking
just
to
like getting strangers on the phone, it's
getting
it's
strangers on
it's
the phone.
scary.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
because nobody wants to be a telemarketer.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and that it feels a little, but it really isn't.
yeah,
It's consensual.
yep,
And yeah.
and people are happy
Well,
to do it,
people are happy
so
to do it. I
yeah.
mean,
And then what I teach is to then create like a document of all these little phrases, like, for example, the one that I would have pulled from my client, that email that they sent of like, "Feels like on the inside what it looks like on the outside." I would just put the exact words, and this is where the copy paste comes in, because then you can literally copy and paste those things all over your content. And so you very well could say, "Hey, ChatGPT, give me, 10 viral hooks," or whatever. And they're going to give you a bunch of vague things that everybody else is using. But then you can literally replace. It's like, if you got the format, fine, but then you can replace it with the specific things that your client has said. And now you are sounding like yourself. And now you're sounding like your client, honestly. And that's when they're going to be like, "Oh, like this sounds like me. Like she's the photographer for me," because you have actually spoken like them and spoken to them.
yeah. So you've certainly made a case for at least one way to create, generate like very, very actually authentic copy
Mhm.
that is on brand for you. Um, what are some tells? What are some things that you're seeing over and over again, specifically from photographers, maybe on Instagram, maybe on their websites, that you're like, ugh, that's AI. That's not
Mhm.
them.
I have a list. Um, and this is an ever growing list. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there are the things like the M dash, like the long dash, which, and everybody always gets so mad when anybody calls out the M dash, and they're like, "But it's proper punctuation." And it's like, yes, it is. But if you, number one, never used an M dash before in your life, and you're all of a sudden using it, like that's a tell. But then it's also like the prevalence of using it, and using it in like every other sentence. It's just, and then it's the cadence. It's like, I mean, all the things, like, it's not this, it's that.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
something on
That one.
Threads the other day that I was cracking up on about, somebody said that GPT was trained on the phrase, "It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno."
Ew.
It's like, that's
It's the
I was like,
DiGiorno sentence
yeah.
structure.
Yes, so don't be like DiGiorno. I got
Yeah.
such a kick out of that. I was like, "That is everything that I've been trying to
So true.
say." Again. Another one is like, not this, not that, just this other thing.
Mhm.
Any grouping of 3, which again, that one frustrates me because I would do, a group of 3, but it's often vague groups of 3. So it would be like, my photos are authentic, natural, and emotional, like that is, again, like all of these things are trained on good writing, but they mush it all together, and then they have the patterns and the voice, and it's just not, it's not, yeah, it's clearly not written by a human. And honestly, question mark, or I'm gonna say the quiet part out loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then as far as like photographer, story driven. So I used to call myself a visual storyteller, and that was on the homepage of my website. And everybody's like, I just want to call myself a storyteller. And this was like way back in 2015. It was already played out, by then. It was already cheesy to call yourself a storyteller. If you call yourself a storyteller, fine, but we can also just like tell better stories. And it's like every photographer is a storyteller, like by nature. That's just what you are. But now AI is using the phrase story driven. So I'm seeing that a ton. I'm doing these fun like website reviews on Instagram, and I also have like my longer 10-minute website X out tests. And I over like last week, over the span of 2 days, I think I reviewed 5 or 6 websites, and more than half of them had the phrase story driven in it. And these are photographers from all over the country, some from in like the UK and or in Munich, I think she was. And I'm like, and everybody's using the same phrase. And so, of course, like what's going to happen when a client lands on your website and then on somebody else's website, and they're looking at the two of them and they're like, well, I like her photos and I also like her photos, and they're describing themselves the same way. They're both story driven, as an example.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, I'm going to go with the cheaper one because you're
That's
just
right.
the same.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
nothing that's pulling them.
Yes.
Story driven. I'm also seeing things now, which I didn't think this was it, but again, as I'm doing these little website reviews, I've seen this 2 or 3 times in the past week, of like, your wedding day isn't a performance, your photo shoot isn't a performance. And I'm like, performance, like AI is trying to get like at the, a little like pain point
Damn it,
marketing here.
Cassie. I
Do
say
you have
that.
performance?
I
Oh,
say, but that's because I really hate performative shit. So I've been trying to, yes, but I didn't, but I came up with shit, so I gotta say something else.
yeah. And so that's the issue though too, right? It's like that's what
Yes.
everybody's like, but I use the M dash, but I always
Yes.
say this, and I came up with this before AI, and it's like, that's fine. Where the issue is when like your entire brand then hinges on that thing.
Mhm.
And so again, what I teach is like show, don't tell. And I don't know if you've ever heard that in like a creative writing class, or, you have to think about anything that you're writing as if it were to be sent off to somebody who's making a movie. And, if you say it's not performative or it's not a performance, like, what am I picturing? Am I picturing somebody tap dancing? Am I picturing somebody standing so still? Like, what is that? And so you could call yourself a storyteller, that's fine. But then like tell a story
Yeah.
about what is going to pull in your clients. Like an elopement photographer who goes up to mountains is going to tell a very different story from somebody who loves a marble ballroom. It's 2 very different types of clients. And so what I had tried to do with our website was, telling the stories about our life that would connect to our clients. So, for example, on as I was having in my my cringe fest training here where I go through all of my cringy websites, one of the things that I changed was I stopped letting it be this poetic gobbledygook, and I just like painted this word picture of me and my husband like having a night in on a Saturday night, cooking chicken thighs and splattering coconut milk all over the kitchen, and it was just this picture where we then called in a ton of couples who also loved, you know, a date night to be cooking at home. Or we talked a lot about our home renovation, and literally we would have these couples who also like renovated a house that their you know, father-in-law helped them build, which is our story as well. And it was like, are we the same people? Like, and so just by like telling those stories and creating those visual pictures with your words and not just leaving it as I'm a visual storyteller, or I create story driven images, and you actually say what those stories are, because your clients are going to be very different from the photographer down the street's clients. And then you're going to call them in by creating this world that they can then just plop themselves into.
Yeah, and what a great way to set yourself apart because like you pointed to earlier, as once your work is good and this other person's good and
Yeah.
now your copy is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, what how are we going to differentiate? It's going to be the price. And nobody wants to compete on price. Nobody wins. It it's where you do not want to be compared. That's yeah, it's certainly compelling. I'm finding those still, despite
Hmm.
all of us having this this brand. Like whether or not you realize it, we all have a brand that we need to extract. We all have words, we all have uh unique thoughts. People are still going to the robot and asking the robot to generate the copy that's going to be between them and their potential new clients. So, do you draw a line anywhere where you're like, this place needs to be you, this part of your website needs to be you, this can be AI? Is there anywhere where photographers are writing their own words down where you think AI generated is acceptable? And please say it's blog
Uh,
posts.
you know, it's funny. I like stopped blogging since AI, you know, came out. So because I, you know, stopped trying to get wedding clients in like 2024. And my sister was actually writing a lot of our blog posts. She was like my VA. So I don't know like what AI does for blog posts or SEO, or if that's you, you know, feeding it the cannibalization. But I think for blog posts, it's helpful again to like outline. You know, if you can feed it like, hey, I need like an H1, an H2, and you know, an H3 or whatever about this wedding at XYZ venue. Can you give me an outline for it? Um, sure. And then I would do that. I think an acceptable place to put in to use AI might be even in like an FAQ section, you know, spitting out the answers to questions, because that can be very upfront. Just, you know, make sure that it's not trying to be deeper. You know, like that should be very like factual, you know, like it doesn't necessarily need your brand voice, but that can also be a place where you can put in your brand voice because you're quelling their fears. You're, you know, showing them that you got them. You know, someone who's reading an FAQ is like, is she the right photographer for me?
Right.
But you can use it again, like to start. And then I would never just copy and paste it exactly what it says. Always change it around. Always read everything out loud that you write. I was looking at a photographer's website the other day and she wasn't using contractions and it was AI. And I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if, if she, like, I wonder what the connection was. Cause I was seeing those like, it is not this, it is not that. But she was saying, it is not this, it is not that. And I was like, this is so interesting. And it's not how any human really speaks. So you
Right.
just gotta,
Right.
so even if you have AI write your blog post or whatever, but I would say like definitely your headlines, you know, write those yourself. Even if AI spits them out for you, read it out loud, make sure it actually sounds like you and something that would come out of your mouth, because that's what's going to happen when somebody reads it, is they're going to be kind of hearing this voice in their head. And if it sounds like a robot or it sounds like vague, you know, gobbledygook, then they're going to tune out.
Yeah, why do you think that is that people tune out once it becomes clear that it is AI?
So there's this interesting theory that this is totally what I believe. It's so funny. When I was an English teacher, I would teach like Frankenstein, and I actually taught science fiction to high school seniors like my first couple years. I was like, this is
Cool. Very cool.
it's so
Very
cool. It was so outside of my genre. I was like, I don't think I've ever actually read science fiction, but I'm going to teach you about it. Um, but we would do a whole lesson and units on the uncanny valley. I don't know if have you heard of the uncanny valley? I'm
No.
okay,
No.
I'm fascinated by this, and I feel like this is like a full circle moment. So, the uncanny valley is this theory that was started in Japan by this roboticist. I forget his name off the top of my head. But he, as they were starting to develop robots, they saw this like phenomenon where people would the closer that they got to human likeness, it would be like, you think of a robot like Wally, like so
Right.
cute and like we're very endeared towards him. But as it got closer and closer to being human like, there was this drop in likability like right before it got to being a human. And so you think about like why we might love a cartoon character, or we could like watch Frozen and like Elsa and Anna, like we love them, they're cute, they're beautiful, but like you actually look at them and they got like huge eyes and like the thickest
Yeah.
hair you've ever seen, right? They're
Yeah.
actually not very human like.
Right.
So we can be very endeared to them, but then you watch the Polar Express, which is like a classic.
What a choice for that
Right?
animation. What a choice.
Right?
And
Where
what, like
it's like,
2001?
oh
Like,
my gosh,
really?
it's so creepy
Yeah. Yeah.
because they tried to make it too human-like, and so our likability, it dips down into this valley. There's actually they say it's like a lizard brain caveman thing that's
Mm,
ingrained in us where it would keep us away from dead bodies and corpses and sick people. Like, the
wow.
likability where it would be like a human is here, but there's something wrong. He's dead or he's very sick, so I'm gonna stay
Right.
away.
Right.
So very interesting. But this is what I feel like is happening with AI writing, where like we could be so endeared, right? Like my 6-year-old is learning how to read and write, and his writing is adorable. and,
Yeah.
and it's like, kind of low on this. It's so likable, even if it's not exactly how like a grown adult would write, but it's so likable. But then as we get closer and closer to, this like human writing, but there's with the AI, it's just it's human writing, but it's not quite like that likability just dips before we
Yeah.
get to, reading somebody's memoir or, somebody's stream of consciousness where you're just feeling pulled in by that authentic emotion. And yeah, that's where my mind goes, is that we are in the uncanny valley when it comes to writing, because it's a robot that's writing for you, a robot
Right.
that's pretending to be human, and it's passable as human until you start reading it and you're like, oh, this is just giving me the ick because I've heard
Mhm.
this cadence before. I've heard, all of this before. And I think, like I said, like when all of this first came out, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I think I probably threw
Sure.
out some AI captions
Sure.
too, because it
Yeah.
was it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
brand new. And now it's been what, only like 2 years and everybody's already sick of it. And we can already
Yeah.
tell like this
Yeah.
isn't, yeah.
I I think it also communicates being that you're a little bit disingenuous if you're clearly like the parallels of the animation is a great one.
Hmm.
If you're clearly presenting something that you acknowledge as pretend, you acknowledge as fake, you're not trying to trick somebody into thinking it's real, to towing the line of and you're trying to no, that's I wrote that that and a cornerstone of marketing is building trust. And are you building trust if you are pretending to have written something that you're presenting to the public?
Right. And that's tricky too with writing, because then you're not going to be like, here's my AI caption. You put it
Yeah,
down
yeah,
below.
yeah,
I mean, you can obviously do that. There's all these scandals happening now in the wedding world of, and photo stealers is doing all the things about photographers that are stealing other photographers' work and,
sure.
turning them into AI and passing them off as their own. which we shouldn't be stealing other photographers' work, but if you wanted to create, a inspiration image, like just be candid about that. Be like, here's an AI inspiration image for what this mini session is going to look like. Like, just be like, why are we lying? Just just
That's
tell the
it.
truth.
Be honest.
Just be
Like,
honest.
I am, I well, this feels like a non sequitur, but it's not. I have a child with autism. I have a child with ADHD. I have ADHD. I do have some autistic traits, and one of them is that I can't not be transparent. Like, I struggle to be, and this is where my non-performative, my hate for performative shit comes from. It's like, let's be real. What is left of humanity if it's not our ability to be actual real humans, when everything else is barging in and taking our place in different parts of this world? Our humanity, our flaws, our uniqueness is what's left. Like, why would you abandon that?
For sure.
That is a huge perk
Yeah.
of,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah.
One of my copywriting mentors, Laura Belgray, she was, the copywriter for Marie Forleo and all this, but I just went to, I've followed her since 2017, since I went full-time wedding photographer, and I was like, oh, I have to like figure out my marketing. And then now I am a copywriter, and I just went to one of her live events in the city, a couple weeks ago, and it was incredible. It was 2 days of us just in a room, of 40 of us in a room, and just responding to prompts of like, I can't remember what they were off the top of my head, but it was like the word was like, go, And it's like, what comes to mind? And then we would write for 15 minutes, and then some of us would share, and we were laughing and we were crying, and it was just this moment of like, right, these were like unpolished pieces. Mine were stream of consciousness, that were 15 minutes of me just writing stream of consciousness based on, I think one of the prompts was like your first job. And I'm just writing about this summer camp that I worked at, and everybody's laughing and crying. And like my copywriting mentor said, she was like, wow, like what a writer. And I'm like, these are literally just my thoughts coming out of my fingers and me just typing them. Like, I understand, like, something that I hear from a lot of people too is like, I'm just not a good writer. I can't
Right.
get I just can't form sentences. And that is like a real struggle, and I was, an English teacher. I know all the struggles and all of the different writing abilities, but it's like your Instagram caption, you're not trying to write a Pulitzer, winning book. Like, you're just gonna,
Yes.
it's
Right.
an Instagram caption. Just, you can form a thought, and you can, tell the story when you post, the beautiful picture of the bride and her dad, like, just tell a little story about that. What was that about? What is the story behind that picture that you took, as opposed to just being like, I love capturing authentic moments. Like, because we don't have to be vague. Even if you're not a good writer,
Oh,
you don't have to be vague.
yeah.
And to that too, I say, like, for a lot of times I'll go on walks sometimes and I just do like voice to text,
Mm.
and I'll just spitball things. So for someone who's not a good writer, like, do that. Like my husband, he's a good writer, but he thinks out loud. And there have been so many times where we're just like chatting about business, and I'm like, hold up. And I like have to pull my note up on the phone because he comes up with these incredible metaphors and things just out of his mouth. But if he were to sit down and write, they would never come. Like, he has
Right.
to think and talk. And so as you're talking to your
Practice.
friends, and yeah, as you're like talking to people, or just use the voice to text, and that's how you come up with stuff. You don't have to sit down, because that was my issue, and this is all that I talk about in the Cringe Fest too, of me as an English teacher. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to put the most beautiful poetry on my photography website, and I'm like, sit and stay a while, and I'm writing these. Oh, it's so cringy. When I first found it, like a year or so
It was
ago,
a different time, Cassie.
oh
It
my
is
gosh,
so
no, but
excusable.
I I'm I love making fun of myself for that, because I'm like, I remember I would have coworkers be like, "Oh, I love reading your writing online." But then her daughter got married and she did not hire me. I wasn't even in the running. They didn't even want to talk to me. It was just like
Really?
I was just writing, not for the sake of selling, just writing for the sake of being like, "Look at how deep I am. Look at my art is
Right,
so
right.
deep and beautiful." And it's like, that's fine, and you can write blog posts like that, but when it comes to your website and all of that, you have to make sure that your people can see themselves in it, and you're not just going on an ego trip, being like, "Look at how good I am, and look at how
Right.
good my work is, and how meaningful it is."
Well, there's so many facets of what you do other than coming up with clever words or catchy phrases and things like that is you've already mentioned the SEO with H1 H2 and like
Mhm.
figuring out all of that, but also understanding that when you're marketing, you are not the main character. You are an essential piece of the equation, and the person, especially as a photographer, is going to be spending actual time with you.
Yep,
Your who you are matters,
of course.
but it can't be about you. Do you remember, you said you listen to a lot of marketing and business podcasts.
Mhm,
Jenna Kutcher's,
mhm.
um, I remember very early on, and this was in, probably in the early teens, preteens of but I listened to her a lot because she was saying different things, but what she was saying, I think a lot of people took and ran with it like too far. The
Mm.
mac and cheese advice of like like letting people know what your favorite thing and make your personality about your mac and cheese because now when people see mac and cheese, they're going to think of you. It's the people took that too far and it's
Yeah.
like
Well,
we
that was, like, such a different time too,
yes. Yeah.
where and, like, we were all just figuring out this
Yes.
online space, and it was like, how do we get people to feel connected to us over the internet? And I do feel like we have actually switched back
Uh-huh.
now to more of that of, like, yeah, you have to show your little personality things, and, like, doing that on your stories, is like a great it's fine. I can keep going? Yeah. So like doing that on your stories is like a good place to show off like, oh, I'm making my mac and cheese or I'm doing all of this. But it's like it doesn't have to become your full brand. But there are those little things like I remember I like put up on my stories once or something about how I used to sell jewelry and journals on Etsy back in like 2011. And then I started taking pictures of I needed, to borrow my mom's camera to take pictures of the products to put on there, and then I realized that I loved the photography bit more than, the creating things I found on Pinterest and putting them on Etsy bit. And so that
I
kind of
love
launched yeah, but that
you're
like
like
somebody messaged me and they were like, "Oh my gosh, I sold random journals and stuff on Etsy in 2011 too." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So there could be those things like and I think we are, like, starving for that humanity piece, and nobody everybody's getting sick of influencers who just sell, sell, sell all the
mm,
time. So I think we are back to now wanting to be able to connect over, like, the silly, stupid stuff, but at the same time, like, you are there to do a service, and my main goal, even my husband now is I'm trying to help him with his, side of the business, is to just be the best service provider that you can be. It's, obviously don't let a client walk all over you and abuse you. Like the customer is always right though, in some sense. Like just make them happy and like show that you care. And, a lot of photographers, I think, get into business because they love photography so much. But then they're like, oh, but now I have to like do my taxes and now I have to actually serve my clients. It's not just, it is all fun and games. Like shooting is the
yeah.
best part, but it's like you have to create this experience. I've posted before about I love stalking and like listening in on conversations over on Reddit and in Facebook groups and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And the
Yeah.
clients are getting sick of photographers not treating them well.
We are.
And yeah,
We got a little big for our britches there.
yeah.
Uh,
And it's,
for sure.
or they'll like pick the photographer that's really good at social media but doesn't know how to send an email communicating, what's going to happen at their session. And so there's, somebody had put in a Reddit thread that there's a lot of social media swooning about how clients will be looking for, those photographers who have the tens of thousands of followers and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to get them." And their work is beautiful, but like they don't know how to serve you. And that's a real shame.
Yeah. Follower count, I am finding, does not really
Yeah.
translate into competence
Yep.
necessarily.
Yep.
They are, you know, and I want to just stop and say that I love how your life is kind of like a pop culture, like greatest hits. Like you did the jewelry on Etsy. You like it was, yeah, that was, I feel like if you weren't doing that, you were getting sucked into like an MLM. So good job
Yeah.
not running a pyramid scheme. That is, my sister also sold jewelry on Etsy, and
So funny.
Portlandia did a skit on it, which is
Yes. Oh, she's making jewelry now.
yes. So good. Cassie, I can't we've been talking for I mean, my dog has interrupted us quite a few times, but we've been talking for an hour and this has been an
Great.
incredible conversation. Um let do you want to do a little lightning round?
Sure.
Quick hits, easy questions, so hopefully easy. All right. Number 1, what is in your opinion the most overused marketing word?
Gosh, I would probably be story driven or storyteller.
Yeah, seems to be the villain today.
Yeah.
And so next question is probably going to be the same answer. What's a phrase that you would ban forever if you could?
Gosh, authentic moment. No, in between moments.
Yes. Yeah.
Just tell me what those moments are.
Talk of shit too. Okay. For writing, Oxford comma, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Long captions or short captions for social media?
Um, I think it depends. It depends on what your strategy is. If you're giving a lot of detail already in the post itself, like if you're doing a carousel, you could do a short caption, or if you have a lot of, if you're yapping on screen or whatever, and then a short caption. But if it's just a quick 7-second B-roll, like maybe a long caption is needed.
All right. What is the most obvious AI tell?
Gosh, there's so many. It's got to be the DiGiorno. It's not this, it's that. It's not
That
delivery,
was
it's
like
DiGiorno.
that was the genesis of Chat GPT tells.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was it. I agree. What's your coffee order?
So my husband's family actually owns a coffee shop. So I
Ooh,
just love
coffee heiress.
I just love their dark roast with a little half and half.
That's it. It must be
That's
good
it.
coffee then.
It's really good.
Nice. Yeah. What is like a phrase that a photographer will use either on their website? Well, let's say website, that instantly makes you tune out.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's the, like, "I capture authentic moments for couples who are in love." It's like, that's incredibly vague and also kind of obvious at the same time.
Yeah. I only work with
Just skip over that part and, like, get to what the authentic moments are and what it looks like for them to be in love. Speak to them specifically.
yes. Yeah, because hopefully they are in love. Hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect world. Email newsletters. Awesome
Oh,
or no?
for wedding photographers, I had tried. Probably not awesome, because the life cycle is so short and they're not gonna, um, book you after the fact. I would have like a waiting list sometimes if people were trying to book too early. I would be like, get on my waiting list and I'll let you know. But for family photographers, and honestly, I haven't tried it. We have tried a little bit with my husband's headshot business to have an email list, but I have seen family photographers and branding photographers really kill it with an email newsletter.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really special thing that you could do. And they like
Yeah.
book out solely from their email. So great for them.
And some are incredible writers and like people
Mhm.
actually want to read their newsletters. I do email marketing, but I don't have a
Mhm.
newsletter. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to hear about what I'm doing. It's mostly like watching birds and
Yeah. Well,
waiting
they
for
do
time.
though. You're going to find your people who are also
Yeah,
bird watchers,
maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. Okay. In social media copy, emojis or never emojis?
I love emojis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
ChatGPT didn't kill it for you.
Nope. You are gonna have to pull the sparkle emoji out of my hands, my cold dead hands.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good one. That is a good one. Okay. What is a one word that instantly sounds fake?
Mm, authentic,
Yeah.
ironically.
Isn't that so funny? I
Yeah.
know. It really does. What about a piece or a punctuation mark that needs a little bit more usage and respect?
Mm. Um, I don't know. I love an exclamation point. Anytime anytime I, write anything for my husband, he's like, "Guys don't use exclamation points." I'm like, "But you should. They're the best."
He's right. I didn't notice that. Yeah, I think he's
So
right.
it's really hard to write for him, 'cause I'm like that's
Okay.
partially why I can't, like, write for other photographers. I'm like, "I can't nail your voice. I'm just gonna keep using exclamation points."
Yeah, and I usually have to, like, go through my emails and, like, the email that I just sent you this
Yeah.
morning, I removed an exclamation point, and there was too
Yeah.
many. I I'm like,
You can always remove them.
you can always remove them. I do. That's, like, my editing.
Yeah.
Um, Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Mm. Beatles.
Mm, me too. Um, what is the most human thing that a photographer can do online?
Use contractions and write like they speak.
Yeah.
Do the
Yeah,
voice note and see what words you actually say and read your stuff out loud so it actually sounds like a human.
agree. And, last question, what is
Mhm.
something that immediately makes somebody trustworthy?
Gosh. Yeah, just being transparent and simple with their language, making everything. We didn't really talk about like website flow and like how to book people, but making your website easy to navigate and making it easy to figure out how to work with you. And like you're just guiding them, always being one step ahead. That's one of the standards that I have in my business is just being one step ahead of the client, just guiding them to the next step of working with you at all times.
Yeah. I actually changed my, my desktop to just, like it says, "Keep it simple," because I have a
Mm-hmm.
tendency to overcomplicate things, and that is never the ticket. It
Yeah.
is never the ticket. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cassie, this has been a very enlightening and fun conversation.
I'm so glad.
Tell the listeners more about where they can find you, what they can learn from you, what they can take from you. I think you have a lot of cool resources that I
I
saw on your
do.
website.
So, yeah, you can find me on Instagram. That's kind of where I live. It's Cassie, Cassie, Torres, CT, which stands for Connecticut, but it's also my initials, which is fun. So, Cassie Torres, CT on Instagram. Don't go to my website because, ironically, right, it's like the cobbler's kids have no shoes. If you want to see my branding photos, you can. But a lot of my
You have
offerings
a
and
great
everything have
website.
changed. Yeah, thanks. It's not up to date and I don't really offer those things anymore.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so you can go to my website, cassietorres.com. And then I have a couple things that you can grab for free. I have my Cringe Fest to Clear Choice. I guess I could send you the link if you want to put it in the show notes. And that's like, it's almost like an hour video of me going through my website and like the 5 main things that I tweaked on my, website over the 10 years, of you'll see my cringy,
I love
website
this.
from 2015
Yeah.
and how it kind of correlated to, being able to quit my teaching job and hitting 100,000 years and $100,000 years and stuff like that. And then I have another resource called Not Just Another Photographer. It's 174 ways that you can set yourself apart from every other photographer without using the words like story driven and natural and authentic and stuff like that. It's basically, it's like 174 prompts, and it's you don't answer all of them. You just skim. The point is to skim through and answer the ones that really spark something exciting for you, so that you can pull out those things. Like was reviewing a photographer's website the other day, and she just quit her job as a park ranger to be a photographer, and I'm like, that is the coolest thing ever, especially if you're doing like elopement photography. But she had that buried in like paragraph 5 on her website. And I'm like, you got to highlight that. Like by saying you're a park ranger, it immediately tells me, these 7 things about you, and why you're going to be a unique photographer and maybe the perfect photographer for me. So it's meant to kind of pull out all of those things. So I can give you the link to that as well, not just another
For
photographer.
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Again, great conversation.
Yes.
You're a lot of fun, and I look forward to checking out those resources myself
Yes.
and brushing up.
Yeah.
Any-
Let me know how they go.
well, thanks again, Cassie.
Thank you.
Have a
This has
wonderful.
been
I hope
great.
you feel 100% better soon.
Yes. Mother's Day food poisoning.
That's it, baby. All right.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
So until next time, keep shooting, keep creating, and keep building the business that supports your dreams. Have a fantastic week. And remember, in the business of photography, your creativity is your biggest asset.